Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan.
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight we are talking all about Tarantino's new epic, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. Tarantino, almost too much Tarantino for its own good.
Yeah.
Which we'll discuss. Look, we're going to, from now on, all our major movie reviews and TV reviews are going to be just full spoilers. Because most people don't listen to the episode if they haven't seen the movie or show.
Yeah.
So there's no point in beating around, because we always end up beating around the bush and talking around things. So yeah, we're going to do full spoilers. I mean, it's Tarantino. This is not an entry-level Tarantino film. If you haven't seen Tarantino's movies or you don't really like his stuff, you're not going to see this movie anyway. It's not a good place to start. And if you have seen his other stuff and you're worried about this one, it's definitely worth seeing on the big screen, even with its faults. It's like an experience.
It's
Particularly go see it on film if you're able to.
and we should start there, really.
Yeah.
Because what an experience it was, just the act of seeing this movie on film.
Yeah. So should we talk about that and then go into spoilers, or just do the spoiler warning now?
We'll talk about
about that.
Trip.
Just the experience
Yeah.
of
We'll talk about our trip first, and then we'll.
Okay. Yeah. So we were lucky enough to see the film on 35mm at the Astor Theatre, which is the intended way, as Tarantino, who only shoots on film and doesn't like digital photography or projection.
He's very analog. He even writes his scripts longhand.
Yeah,
in pencil.
He doesn't have a mobile phone. He's very old school. So yeah, it's the intended way to see the film. I mean, even if you can't see it on film, you should still see the movie, but it's the best way to experience it. And you get that real sense of occasion of going to the theater, and which is what Tarantino's always been about. That's why he's never been a big fan of Netflix and stuff, because he's it takes away from the special occasion of going out to the movies,
And he's right, but that experience isn't always easy to get.
It's especially in Australia. In LA, I'm sure there's a lot of theaters, including his own, where you can catch old movies, projected on film. But here, there's a couple, maybe, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And even then, it's not always the easiest or the cheapest to go out all the time.
No, but we did make the effort.
Yes.
And we
very special occasion.
We were there hours early. As we know,
I made sure we got there early to get in line, to get front row balcony seats.
We're all punctual boys here, generally. And we waited in line at the door for probably an hour.
Yeah.
And we got front row seats.
Yeah, it paid off.
It was worth it.
It was worth it.
Yeah. And I always, usually for the show, I always see the movie twice. Even on movies I don't really like that much, just because I'll see it with you guys, then I might see it with my friends from uni, maybe my dad might want to go. It always just factors in. And then that way it's also good because it's fresh in my mind for the show, having seen it twice.
You can remember more.
Yeah, and you can also see it's a different experience seeing a movie the first time and then the second time. Because the second time you see things you don't see the first time.
Subtext.
Yeah.
And
subtext might become...
You could be a bit more relaxed.
A bit more analytical.
Yeah. And so I saw it again we saw it together on Saturday, and then I saw it again on Monday. But it was also a special experience because I saw it both times on 35mm.
And did you have to wait? Did you have to line up longer on?
Well, see, I got there an hour early because I told my friends, I'm like, I know it's Saturday and Monday are very different. There's not going to be as many people, but I still want to get the best seats. So get there early. Of course, there was no one there until 20 minutes before the session started. Yeah. But still, that meant we were first in line. So I'm like, it's better to have to wait an hour to be first in line.
Definitely.
Than to, come when there's more people there and then get okay seats or shitty seats. But anyway, long story short, saw it twice. Great experience both times. But yeah, the experience of seeing it in a theater with an audience on 35mm film, as it should be.
Especially with all the crackles on the some of the crackles on the film.
That kind of
The actual magic of film.
Yeah, that kind of also ties into the theme of the movie, which is like a nostalgia piece about Hollywood.
We shouldn't know. One thing I want to point out is we went to the 5 p.m. session, and there was a line, but it wasn't like big or whatever.
Yeah.
When we left, it was like literally the term where the term blockbuster came from.
Yeah, for the 8 session.
Yeah. The queue for the 8 p.m. Saturday session went literally down the road.
Yeah, went round the block. Yeah,
it was incredible.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So the Astor's doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, for these few days where they just marathoned Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they were making all right money. But yeah, I think that I guess we should just move on to the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
And we'll just announce spoilers now, so we don't have to worry about it.
Spoiler warning.
So spoiler warning for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
And maybe a small spoiler warning for some of his other works in case there's relevant.
Yeah, I think his movies now are so popular that it's like if we spoil them, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, if you're for some reason listening to this and are worried about Pulp Fiction spoilers or something,
don't spoil Pulp Fiction, James.
John Travolta gets killed coming out of the toilet. Spoiled. Movie ruined. Can never watch that movie.
Poor Vincent.
But yeah, full spoiler warning for the movie. Spoiler, you've been warned. So, what should we talk about first?
I liked it. Not as much as I thought I was going to like it, though.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting feeling because I assumed I was going to come out with like mind blown.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I'll buy it when it comes out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a good film.
It's
compared to a lot of the other movies that are coming out now that aren't like Marvel movies, damn good.
Oh, I mean,
but
Tarantino is on his own kind of level.
It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. And I mean, we'll get into the specifics why, because I'm pretty sure we all have generally the same feelings.
Yeah. So I'm going to say something and then I'm going to rewind it back. So the movie is really, really good, really solid, great Tarantino up until the 6 months later skip. Then the end just kind of farts itself out. I feel like the end is a bit of a piss take that doesn't live up to the first like 2/3 or 3/4 of the movie. Now that I've said that, I'm going to rewind it back and say, let's talk about all the cool shit in the movie before we like drop the bomb on the ending.
Yeah. Well, the aesthetic.
Yeah.
Just the feel of the movie.
This is one of the... I mean, Tarantino movies always look good. All of his movies look good. This is one of the best-looking movies in recent memory.
Yeah, I agree.
Not only sitting on 35, obviously having that experience, just the cinematography, fantastic. But the production design is next level.
It is.
They transport you back into 1969 Hollywood.
And it's amazing.
It's incredible the way that they've recreated like the streets of Hollywood, like the facades of the buildings, the cars, without any digital effects.
Apparently, some of the people who lived in the area really liked the changes so much that they actually asked some of the companies to keep the facades up.
Yeah,
like they were so high quality facades, like not just like the movie. There's the meme of like the cheap Hollywood cardboard cutout.
Just the front.
It was like full on actually redecorating places.
Yeah, it's insane. Like watching this movie. It feels like it was made... It feels like they went back to the 60s, shot it, and then took the film back to... The period cars, the buildings, the billboards. Like, it's insane how... Like, there's a shot... Like a huge... Like a helicopter shot or, quite a high-up shot of, like, the freeway. And all the cars... are period-accurate cars.
Apparently, they shut down the freeway for that. So they shut down the whole freeway and just brought in period-appropriate cars.
And there's just no digital effects. And it's like...
That's like going to Nolan levels.
Yeah, you don't see that. Like, even in big-budget Hollywood movies set in the past, they deliberately don't do stuff like that because they know it'll cost too much or... that they'll have to digitally erase
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's what I was going to say. That's a testament to Tarantino's power over the studios, really.
Yeah.
Because there's no other filmmaker these days who could go to a studio and say, I want to do this, but it's all practical. I want a freeway full of era-appropriate cars, 60s cars, vintage cars.
Yeah.
I want all the streets to be vintage like it was. They'd be like, nah, you CG.
Exactly. We always talk about how they don't make movies with practical effects anymore and stuff like that. And
this is a big one.
That's not just in terms of action, sci-fi movies.
Sets.
That's also, just in terms of dramas with stuff like this, where it's like putting a billboard, like a 60s style billboard on top of a building, they don't do that a lot anymore.
Yeah. No, this is one of those movies where it's like I can watch it just because I want to sit in that time period. I can sit in that groove.
The best thing about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is that it's a nostalgia piece. It's I think Tarantino called it a memory piece. Like it's
he
about
compares it to Roma, which is a pretty
yeah. I mean, but it's similar to that in the fact that it's the time he grew up in LA.
Yeah.
Like it's his memory of LA at the time, like what it looked like, what it's like sounded like,
felt like.
Yeah.
And that's such a good descriptor, a memory piece.
Yeah, that's what's so great about the film, and that's what it does the best. Is it transports you back to that time. And I love, not just the look of the film, but, obviously the soundtrack. Every Tarantino movie has great soundtrack. But now, most of the time, his movies, like a song that's out of place will start playing on the soundtrack. Like it's set, a movie set during World War II or in the Wild West, a 60s pop song will start playing or something.
But in this movie, it's pretty... correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But this movie is pretty much all the tracks are either started on a radio or when a vinyl, when a record needle drops.
This movie has the typical Tarantino style soundtrack, but it's all diegetic because characters in the movie are listening to it on the radio or putting a record on, and so it still has that Tarantino feel, but it's different because it's not like used. There's not an action scene where they're playing an old song.
Yeah,
it's like. Everyone, it's part of the atmosphere of the world, It's part of transporting you back to that period in time, and it's not just the songs. It's like the ads on the radio, and they watch because the movie's about Leonardo DiCaprio plays Rick Dalton, who's like
Rick Dalton,
who like he's like a washed up kind of TV actor, and so the whole movie kind of revolves around. 60s TV shows, westerns and stuff like that. And so there's always someone watching an old show, or it's a love letter to the industry, filmmaking industry. Like they're always on a back lot or on a set,
Yeah. Like the behind the scenes kind of thing.
It's about like making old shows, but at the time they weren't old shows.
No, they were cutting edge.
Yeah. So like that's the best thing about the movies, like the atmosphere and the
No, it's the feel.
The mise en scene?
Yeah, that
like
as well.
Like I mean like the meat of mise en scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the meta kind of nostalgia of it all. Which Tarantino movies have always had, but this one is very directly
This one that's what the movie's almost about.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just so good, yeah. I think Leonardo DiCaprio was he's always a good actor.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie, it was like peak sort of acting performance for me from Leo.
He always gives a good performance, but this kind of tying into the meta thing, like he's playing an actor has a certain range, whereas Leo has perhaps a bigger range than Rick Dalton would. So he's acting.
It's subdued, but it's subtly brilliant.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's pretending to be a worse actor than he actually is. But because it's Leo playing Rick Dalton playing
a character,
like a character.
Yeah,
but it's good though.
Yeah,
it's like it works so well, and it's like he pulls it off, and it doesn't just look like he's playing a bad. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't look like Leo's playing like a pretty bad actor. Yeah. It's like
he inhabits the.
It's very much character acting.
That's the best parts of this movie, my favorite parts are like Rick Dalton's kind of struggle from being a popular TV actor, not really making the transition to movies.
Yeah.
Like he's made a few movies, but he didn't really.
Yeah, but he didn't go from he didn't become a megastar.
Yeah.
He was like you said, a popular TV actor.
Yeah.
But he never made that transition.
They make the comparison in the movie. He's like the Steve McQueen he's like the wannabe Steve McQueen. He never made that transition from TV to big blockbuster.
Like he says in the movie,
star.
he scored a couple of big roles, but most of them, they were just luck.
Yeah.
Like he was just lucky to get that sort of that role.
Yeah.
He was there, right place at the right time.
Yeah. And like that's the best part of the movie is that journey of him trying to like what I call the mid-career crisis.
Yeah.
Like he's like, what are we like?
I'm trying to think of an actor to compare it to, but I can't really.
I mean, Rick Dalton is obviously not a real person, but he's based on several actors of the time who never really made it big. Never really made the transition from TV to big movies. But like that's all the best stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the movie does try to tackle a lot. Not a lot, but there's like two kind of stories that
I
play
think
out.
Because the movie has like so there's Rick's storyline and then his stuntman Cliff Booth, and they've worked together for 8 or 9 years, and they're very close. And it's kind of like about their friendship and about Rick's kind of mid-career crisis and him trying to get over that and Cliff kind of helping him out. And then tangential to that is at the time, 1969, the Sharon Tate, Manson family thing. And that kind of plays out almost completely separate to Rick and Cliff's storyline.
And it's a little jarring.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems with the movie, which we'll talk about later because I don't want to get too deep into it now, is that the ending doesn't satisfyingly enough tie them together.
It just feels kind of slapdash.
Yeah, and because the movie for that up until that point, over 2 hours, because the movie's quite long, the movie up until that point hasn't really weaved them together.
Yeah, it's just every now and again they'll like touch paths and then they'll just diverge again.
Yeah, and not even like they'll just get close. They won't even touch. It's like mostly you'll see a scene of Sharon like completely separate, Yeah,
like Cliff Booth, Rick Dalton, and Sharon Tate. Tate. Yeah, don't really know each other. Like they're not like
they live next to each other.
They live in the same city. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, well,
they're neighbors.
The whole crux of the thing is that Rick is neighbors with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski.
Yeah,
and that's the whole
that's Cliff the shtick of the film.
And Cliff sort of briefly meets the sort of the family at one point, the Manson family,
which never really ties back into Rick's storyline.
I feel like there was a tense moment in the film where Cliff visits the ranch, and he sort of goes to check on an old acquaintance or whatever who's now blind, and that's a good part of the film.
It's a well done scene, but it's
kind of pointless.
At the end of the day, it adds nothing.
Yeah, like they could have taken that out and did something a little different regarding maybe a bit more of Cliff's sort of character growth.
Look, we'll get into this a bit later because there's a lot I have to say about it. But yeah, Tarantino doesn't successfully weave in the Manson family, Sharon Tate murder stuff with the Rick Dalton, Cliff Booth kind of Hollywood career kind of stuff.
I agree. I definitely agree.
And the end just kind of doesn't, just kind of, it almost retroactively kind of shits on what came before,
One thing I did like about how they handled Sharon Tate is I love when she goes to see her own movie in the movie theater, and then on the big screen is the actual actress Sharon Tate. in the actual movie.
They don't try to digitally insert Margot Robbie.
I didn't even realize. Like, I knew she was in the film,
yeah,
but I didn't even realize that's to quote Lauren, who's probably listening to the podcast.
Okay.
Her performance, Margot Robbie's performance as Sharon Tate, was so good that it's not Margot Robbie. It's just the essence of Sharon Tate in the film. Well, and I kind of agree with that because after the movie, You were like, "Oh, Margot Robbie was really good." I'm like, "That was Margot Robbie." Like,
But that, to be fair, you do have like face blindness.
yeah,
But
like,
I know what you mean.
I feel like
yeah.
she was so like she shined
Yeah.
in the film. Like
Yeah.
all the scenes she's in,
I
she
think,
just brings.
I think I liked all the Sharon Tate scenes, and I like how Tarantino is like highlighting just like she was just a nice person who like loved life, and you know like even though the scenes she was in probably didn't really happen.
No.
You know, like just that performance. But I think at the end it didn't really amount to anything.
But Margot Robbie bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, no. Just a good scene when I like how they didn't digitally alter her.
Yeah. It's one of the positives of the movie you can say is it's a good tribute to Sharon Tate.
It's a very loving film in
Yeah.
the sense that it loves Hollywood. It
Yeah.
loves the people involved.
Exactly.
Apart from maybe the Manson family.
Well, yeah, it doesn't like hippies. Tarantino. This is actually we'll get. I feel like we're getting to the end. To like maybe we should talk about the end first. But anyway, let's talk about all the like the really good shit because there's a lot, and I really like this movie up until a point.
All right, good point number 1. Doggos.
Oh yes, this movie gets major points for the good
boy.
good girl,
Good girl.
Brandy. Yeah, good girl. Best doggo.
Yeah.
Best doggo award 1969 goes to Brandy.
And what breed was it? Like some type of...
It's like a pit bull or
Staffy kind of thing?
yeah, kind of thing.
Big old head.
Really nice, pointy ears, but really nice, like all brown.
Really happy looking dog too.
Really
A
nice.
well-trained dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's like John Wick stuff. Like,
and that's and that,
I just mean like the training, like the communication between Brad Pitt and the dog.
the discipline. But yeah, like that's what's great about like some people. I mean, how do I explain this? Tarantino movies are about the characters and the dialogue.
It's like Kevin Smith.
They're about the slow kind of the scenes take a long time to play out. It's not about the plot really or the story. It's about like the characters, the banter, and like the atmosphere and the music, and like immersing yourself in that scene, and the scene will be drawn out.
And that's one of the major things I loved about the movie, and
Yeah.
pretty much all of his
And that's
movies.
exactly-
No quick cuts.
Yeah, but that's what this movie does so well, as with all Tarantino movies, but this movie especially, is like the first like 2 hours of the movie, which are the best parts, is just like Cliff feeding his dog.
Yeah.
Great scene.
And the
Yeah.
facial
Adds
expressions-
nothing.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene.
The facial
Yeah.
expressions on the dog as
Yeah.
well. Like who would say, "Oh, the dog's facial expressions on point."
That's one
you know
thing,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like the pet food dropping from the tin and
Yeah.
makes that like the sound effects.
The way he
and the
just
dog's like, "Whoop."
tips the can and
Yeah.
just the dog food slides out and
Yeah.
smacks into
and like
the
dog's
the
emotive
bowl.
face.
Yeah.
Oh,
Say
so
what you want about the plot. This movie is like the pinnacle of filmmaking. It's just
Yeah.
like long, drawn-out shots of Brad Pitt feeding a dog,
I
and
also-
it's great.
I also like some of the maybe like the less kind of in your face set design, like the tins of dog food with like the fake logos.
Oh, that's very Tarantino.
Yeah, I just like that a lot.
Yeah.
Like what was it, Wolf?
Wolf brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was
I can't remember
good
the tagline.
good food for
From
mean
Mean Dog.
dogs.
Yeah.
It's like rat flavor, bird flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
Red
that-
apple cigarettes.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that stuff that's really fun, and that's that people have like immersed themselves in the Tarantino verse. Like it's his bizarro version of reality.
Yeah.
Like it's not meant to be an accurate biopic. Like it's his version of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the fact that it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's meant to be a fairy tale.
It's a
almost.
fairy
Yeah.
tale. Like it's like a fictional version
Yeah.
of like the 60s of
I mean-
Hollywood at the time.
If you watch Tarantino movies, all of his movies are set in a heightened, slightly.
Yeah. Like ultra
I don't want to use.
violent.
I don't want to use the word magical, but they're almost like a little. It's not.
Yeah.
The laws of physics don't always need to apply.
It's a world where movies are the most important thing,
Yeah.
but it's also a movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's a
Yeah.
movie universe where people love and watch movies because Tarantino, who makes the movies, loves
Yeah.
and watches movies. If that makes
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So like, and that's what people love. That's what I love about. That's what people love about Tarantino's movies.
That's what studios love about Tarantino's movies.
Well, no, what studios love is that they make money. But like that's like all the best parts are the character stuff, like the the best, like one of the best parts of the movie, I think, even Callum mentioned this after we saw it, is like Rick is in his pool learning lines. Great scene. But then the camera kind of tracks up over Rick's house and then like over the roof and like down next door to the Polanskis, and Sharon and Roman are getting in the car and like going to a party. Like it's just a great like, you know, crane shot over the, and it gives you a sense of the whole area.
It's technically, it's such a well done film.
Oh yeah. Fantastic.
Like it's not just like lots of, you know, doily shots or whatever, just all over the joint. You know, like not that there's anything wrong with those kinds of shots, but like there's a lot of different kinds of shots, all executed spectacularly well.
Yeah. But it all ties back into that kind of that, you know, the energy that Tarantino has, but also like the world he's creating, the atmosphere. But yeah, like I feel like because the movie's a love letter to Hollywood, the strengths of the movie, you know, come from the scenes about filmmaking, about, you know, Rick getting a role, learning his lines, you know, acting, you know, doing the scene.
Some of my favorite scenes are the scenes where he's recording sort of a pilot, or he's involved in recording of a pilot. Yeah, and he's like the bad guy.
He's shooting the pilot.
Doily shot. What am I talking about?
Oh, I thought you did that on purpose.
No, I meant I don't know. I'm tired. I'm sorry.
I thought you were saying that on purpose, like as a way to make fun of it.
Yeah, no. I was like lots of. I'm sorry.
Moving on.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about
Rick's making the pilot for Lancer, and he gets cast as the villain because he's no longer a big main star. So he just he's a well-known actor, but he gets cast as the villain. But then Al Pacino's character, Marvin Schwartz, he tells Rick, he's like, you know, Al Pacino's always good, but he's become kind of a joke. But he's so good in this movie. Like, this is one of his best roles in the last, I don't know how long. But anyway, he tells Rick, he's like, you know, before you know it, people are just going to see you as the washed-up actor who plays bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, like, you have to go to Italy and make action movies there.
Spaghetti westerns.
Yeah, and become a big star again. Because otherwise, your career's...
You'll fizzle out.
Yeah. And Rick doesn't want to do that. He's like, Italian movies, you know, spaghetti westerns suck. You know, he's like, I'm a washed up. My career's, you know, nosedive. He starts crying in the parking lot, and Cliff gives him his sunglasses. Like, don't cry in front of the Mexicans. I mean, oh man, Leonardo DiCaprio is so good. Like, Rick is such a good character. I like how Rick stutters when he's talking in normal, but then when he's acting, it goes away. Like, he's like really smooth, and you know. But yeah, and so Rick is doing this pilot for Lancer, and he plays the bad guy Caleb, and they give him like a big like handlebar mustache.
Yeah, they want him to look like a Hell's Angel. So he's got like that dirty look with the long hair.
Yeah, he's got the long hair and the fringed jacket. And I love that scene when the director's explaining to him like what he will look like and what he wants to do. And Rick is just like hungover and like coughing his lungs out. It's so good. But yeah, like they're on the set. Like all this stuff I'm explaining right now, all the best parts of the movie.
Yeah,
all my favorite
parts in the movie about movie making.
Yeah,
you have to
about
see
film making.
It might sound boring, but you have to actually see it.
This is what the movie should have been about from start to finish.
Yeah.
These are all my favorite scenes.
And the part with Bruce Lee?
No.
We'll get to that.
That bit's a bit cringy. Like, I don't know.
That's also peak Tarantino.
See, and this is kind of my earlier...
Tarantino's a double-edged sword.
This is my earlier statement. Even though I love this movie and I love these parts of the movie, this movie gets to a point where it's too Tarantino for its own good. And I feel like you can start to see it in, you know, maybe his last couple of movies like Django and Hateful Eight, where it all, like, those movies are good and I like them, but it almost feels like he's playing to a crowd. Like,
yeah, like he's doing what people expect of him.
Exactly. At a certain point, there are things that people expect from a Tarantino movie. and he probably not deliberately, in his last couple of movies, he's been playing that up almost to a degree where it's a bit ridiculous. Not I wouldn't call it self-parody, but it gets a bit close. And I feel like the ending, especially of Once Upon a Time,
if the ending was different, it could have gone the other way completely.
It feels like a bit of a piss take at the end.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Bruce Lee scene feels a bit like that. Like he's playing it up to a point where it's like this is just dumb. And I also feel like, because I'm a big Bruce Lee fan,
We should point out the context of this as well.
yeah,
So, there's a fight scene between, and not a legitimate like I'm gonna hurt
and
you.
it's a good scene,
but it's done very well.
Yeah,
There's a fight. So Cliff Booth, being the stuntman, is on a set waiting to see if he will be used in a stunt scene for the day.
Well, actually, I like the framing device. I like as well because Cliff now, has been working with Rick
For the
as
last
a
8
stuntman.
years.
But really, if Rick's work is starting to dry up,
So is
then
Cliff's.
Cliff's work is drying up twofold.
Yeah, so essentially Cliff also acts as like a manservant of sorts.
Yeah,
as
he
well.
like drives Rick around. He does odd jobs for him, and like Rick tries to help Cliff out getting a stunt work, and then like Cliff is on Rick's roof fixing his antenna, and then he kind of flashes back to the set of Green Hornet where Rick was doing like a guest spot, and Rick is trying to get Cliff a stunt job on the show, but like Kurt Russell's character, who's like the
Stunt coordinator.
the stunt coordinator. He's like, nah, see, this isn't. Oh man, there's so much to talk about. We could do like 5 hours. So like Kurt Russell's character Randy, I think, he's like, and Rick's like, come on, give him a job. Like you don't even have to. You don't have to use him.
But Randy's wife does not want him involved.
because
with the picture.
Because Cliff, apparently killed his wife, which is a bit that's too Tarantino. I'm like, this doesn't help your case, Tarantino, especially after what happens at the end. So then there's a flashback to where Cliff is on a boat with his wife, and he's like, and the wife is just giving it to him, like just busting his balls, and he's got like a spear gun. But before anything happens, it like cuts.
Which I liked.
It's funny, but it ends up adding nothing.
It has
and
nothing,
it
but-
muddies the waters later in the film when Cliff becomes like a murderous
Actually, I think it probably would have been.
a machine, like
think
a revenge machine, and it's just like, ugh.
It probably would have been better to show Cliff kill his wife. It would have made the audience feel worse about liking the character.
Maybe, I don't know. I like at a certain point, I was like, maybe they're setting Cliff up as the bad guy. Like I thought he was going to take a heel turn, but then
Join the family.
Yeah, see, that's exactly because in the trailer, right? In the trailer, you see like Cliff going to the ranch and like meeting all the Manson family, and I was like, oh, maybe that happens in the film. Like he like gets thrown in with it. He joins kind of thrown in with the family, and meanwhile, like he maybe sort of accidentally leads the family to Sharon's house because it's Rick's house is next door, something, and he's going to be involved, and maybe if he doesn't become a bad guy and has to kind of, if he doesn't, then he kind of has to kind of redeem himself some way by saving Sharon. It's the Tarantino verse, so we all knew that Sharon wasn't going to die at the end like she does in real life. Like we all knew something was going to happen. Like I assumed. Like at the end of Inglourious Bastards, where they kill Hitler and like blow up all of the Nazi command. Like I thought he was going to do like Sharon Tate gets her revenge, and she actually kills the
Pulls a
hippies
machine gun.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens, next door. But we'll get to that.
But we were talking about Bruce Lee.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like they set Cliff up as a badass, but also someone who I wasn't sure if we were supposed to like or not. But then
it's hard not to like Brad Pitt though.
That's true. But then at the end of the movie, it's like no, they're trying to paint him as a good guy. At least I thought. Anyway,
Is it an attempt at making him sort of like a grey character who's done some bad and some good, or is it just Tarantino just wanking?
I think that's why it's too much Tarantino. He's just wanking off. He's just like, and then like here's a funny little scene,
Yeah.
Here's my little Tarantino flourish.
He's also described as like a vet too.
Yeah, they say he's a war hero.
Yeah. So I actually have clarification on that.
Yeah.
So the first article I read about this had Tarantino saying he was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, which doesn't really make sense.
Here's the clarification. It turns out that the website who did that was a mistranslation. So it was an Asian publication which translated Tarantino's words into, I can't remember what specifically, what region it was from.
Yeah.
But a newer article says that Tarantino claims that Cliff Booth was a Green Beret and served in World War II and killed many Nazis.
Yeah,
which makes more sense canonically with the timeline.
World War II or Korea would make much more sense than Vietnam. Vietnam wouldn't make any sense for his character.
The reason we mention this is because Brad Pitt decks Bruce Lee. And now Bruce Lee is also seen as an arrogant figure, which historically, I'm not sure about how he was perceived.
Bruce Lee,
like the backlots of Hollywood. I don't know.
Bruce Lee has always talked shit. Like he's always talked himself up, kind of in the same way as Muhammad Ali. But one, he could back it up. And two, the way Tarantino deals with it is like they make Bruce Lee look like a huge asshole, like excessively, like he seems like a dick.
And Joe, the man can't defend himself. Like he's not around anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, like that's the only thing I'll say.
His estate got quite upset though.
But and rightly so, because like I feel like if that was Muhammad Ali in the movie instead of Bruce Lee. And Muhammad Ali was talking himself up like he does, and then Cliff came and beat the shit out of him, people would lose their minds. They'd say, this is racist, this is the worst piece of shit ever, how could you? Yeah. But because it's Bruce Lee, there's this kind of...
acceptance?
Yeah, and I'm like, no, it's the same level of racism. Like, you're being racist for...
Oh, no. Let's be fair, though. I think it's got nothing to do with his race.
Yes, it does.
Explain.
Just exactly what I just said. Like, I'm not calling Tarantino. I'm not saying Tarantino was deliberately being a racist and trying to portray Bruce Lee like as a like in a racist light. I'm just saying if his character was black, people would be outraged.
But would it be justified in calling it racist?
Yeah, I think
because of the portrayal of the character, and then a big buff white guy beating the shit out of him.
No, see, I think that's kind of being unfair to Tarantino. The only reason Cliff Booth is Brad Pitt is because he wanted Brad Pitt in the film. My point is, like, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But Bruce Lee was a major sporting celebrity who was in films.
Yeah, but...
So I think we should be... I really don't agree that it's racist.
No. So it's... I mean...
Because Bruce Lee was around on Hollywood Live. No. It's not like they're just inserting Muhammad Ali to get beaten up.
No. So you're misunderstanding me. It's accurate for Bruce Lee to be there. It's accurate... I mean, Tarantino wrote the movie. He can make Cliff beat whoever he wants. But I feel like the way it's presented, they make Bruce Lee the huge arsehole. Bruce Lee isn't a character in the movie. He's he was
also a friend of Sharon Tate.
Exactly. Which this ties into my points about the ending, which we'll talk about, where Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski, Bruce Lee, they're not characters. They're set pieces. They're just there. And at the end of the movie, there's no real... It doesn't tie everything together, you know? They never become real characters. And this comes back to Bruce Lee. He's just a caricature. And it's a fun scene. It's well done. I enjoyed it. But I think at the end of the day, it's just cringy. And it's just Tarantino jerking himself off and saying, look, Bruce Lee was a blowhard and he could fight. But I made Cliff, and Cliff's a badass and a war hero, and he beats the shit out of Bruce Lee.
I can agree that it's not very nice of Tarantino to do.
Yeah.
I can agree that it paints Bruce Lee in a very negative light where he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I think racist is a bit much.
I feel like that's the right word to use. It might not be the best descriptor of all time. I'm sure I could figure out a better way, but I think racist is the best word to use, just because if you made that character black, people would be, but because he's Asian, people
see. I think you're looking at it at too much of a. I'm looking at it as a Bruce Lee was a celebrity at the time who was in martial arts movies.
Yeah,
and that is a confrontation that Tarantino wanted to show on screen. But who is a black celebrity star who also had the same appeal that Bruce Lee did? I can't think of anyone.
Well, Muhammad Ali.
No, but was Muhammad Ali
he was
in motion picture films?
No, but
Muhammad Ali was also famously arrogant. So
no,
I wouldn't necessarily call it racist if it was Muhammad Ali in the movie
No,
instead.
but do you see what I'm saying?
No,
I see
I
what-
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just think
It
you're
clear-
not correct in saying it's racist.
It's very hard for me to explain. Racist
because
is the
it's
best
not
word I can
racist.
use. No, but it's the best word I can use because I feel like because he's Asian, people just take it less seriously that it's a racist.
No, see,
scene.
that's racism from critics. Maybe I wouldn't say it's racist in the film.
Reaction is
Yeah, a reaction is not the same as it being in the film.
I kind of agree
that
with Callum.
The
I
double
think-
standards of critics and viewers might be racist.
Actually, I'll use double
Double
standards
standards
in
is
my
better,
in
yeah.
my yeah. I'll use my instead of racist, I'll say it's a double standard where if Bruce Lee wasn't in this film and Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali was in this film, just talking himself up, saying he's the best
Yeah.
fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Cliff came in, beat him.
Yeah, their reaction would be much worse. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can agree with
But
that.
because he's an Asian man,
Yeah, no, it's-
people there's this lesser kind
Yeah.
of. It's a double standard that needs to be addressed.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
I still don't agree with it being because he's Asian. I do agree that
No,
I think
it's
that he's the
definitely-
type of his celebrity
Yeah.
means that maybe the reaction is a bit different than Muhammad Ali's because they were very different people.
I feel like one of the reasons I'm using that they mentioned Muhammad Ali in the movie, and one of the reasons I'm using him as an example is because yes, they were very different people, but they were both fighters. They were both big, talking themselves up. They were
Best
both
in their
They were
field.
both best in their field. They
But
were
like I
both
said,
active at the same time.
but
like
context-
it's an apt comparison.
I mean,
it makes
if we're
sense.
looking at it at the context of the film,
yeah.
right? It's on point. Not on point. It's on brand, I should say.
No, it makes
for the
sense
film.
in the film, but
But
I
the
feel
reaction,
like
the reaction is the problem.
Yeah, no,
almost.
I
Yeah,
understand.
I feel like it's
just because
placed-
it's a double standard doesn't necessarily mean it's racist.
well, it's still a double standard that needs to be addressed
Yeah.
in culture.
No, that's-
But
that's true.
On top of that, it definitely feels like it's just a Tarantino's, being Tarantino.
Oh,
Haha,
it's completely
here's a funny
useless
flashback
for
scene.
character development.
Yeah.
Oh, that's peak
Exactly.
Tarantino.
And then on top of that, when Zoe Bell comes in and starts cracking the shits at him, I'm like, yeah, it's great to see Zoe Bell, but this is very much a Tarantino. Like, here's a cameo from someone I work with. Here's
Yeah,
Kurt
yeah.
Russell, Like, it doesn't really... It's a great scene. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's just...
useless. It's kinda
it
useless,
adds
though.
nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a piss take. Like,
What would-
it's
I was
him,
kinda
it's
thinking
him
about that
jerking
too.
off.
Right.
What would have been better is to have the Manson family go into the Tate house, and maybe Cliff Booth recommends that they have dinner together, and Bruce Lee kicks the shit out of everyone in the house.
Look,
No,
see, this is the thing.
There's a scene. There's a scene in which Bruce Lee is shown to be kind of showing Sharon Tate how to do martial arts,
Which happened in real life.
yeah,
Like,
I was kind of thinking, like, wouldn't it be great if Sharon Tate defends herself by
Yeah.
using the
Yeah.
martial arts
See,
that Bruce Lee teaches
And this
her?
is my other problem with the Bruce Lee scene is that they never, like with the Sharon Tate scenes, they never tie in to the actual
Yeah.
story of
It doesn't go anywhere.
Rick's journey in Hollywood, Rick's career
this
crisis.
this is a vulgar word to use, but it's kind of like masturbation. It's like,
Exactly.
here's what I like. I'm just going to force it into my film.
Yeah. See, now I feel like if the ending was better handled, it would make a ripple effect back through the film where none of this would be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
If Cliff's character revealed himself to be a bad guy, or got deeper and deeper into the Manson family until something bad happened, these scenes would make much more sense.
Yeah.
But as it stands, these scenes are just Tarantino.
they're made redundant.
Flourishes. Yeah.
They're-
It's just him going, he's known for these
Do you
kind
remember
of
Bruce
scenes.
Lee?
Yeah. It's like Tarantino's known for these scenes, so I'm going to write this little funny scene where it's like, here's an aside backstory to the
vignettes.
character. Yeah. And these are the scenes I love of Tarantino. That's what makes him so special. But the end of the movie kind of ends up making it feel like
I mean,
it's
yeah,
just
usually
jerking off.
Usually in his films, it's usually tied much more smoothly.
Yeah.
That's not a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's usually handled with more grace.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this after the film. It feels like there's two competing narratives. Like, he
Yeah.
had two separate
yeah,
ideas for
he-
two different screenplays.
yeah.
And he kind of just tried to force them
Yeah,
together.
he should have either made a movie about 60s Hollywood and Rick's career, or he should have made a movie about Sharon Tate and the Manson family.
And there's definitely enough meat for both.
Yeah. Now, the way it's in the movie, he still could have interwoven them and tied them together, but the way the movie plays out and the way it ends, he doesn't do that successfully.
Yeah, I agree.
But up until, that 6 months later jump, I think the movie's fantastic, even with these flaws that we're discussing. It's just the ending, I think...
It doesn't pay off anything.
Yeah, it has a ripple effect back throughout the film where you kind of... I started rethinking the movie and be going like, maybe it wasn't good. Like, what was that ending? The ending is so shocking.
I think...
It gets into your system and it's a shock to the system and it goes... And I think a lot of people walking out the cinema when we were seeing it and going like, what the hell was that? And having seen it twice, it's like up until that 6 months later jump, the movie's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's the ending is so shocking that it ripples back through your feelings of what the movie was. And you end up feeling mixed towards the whole movie rather than just the ending. When the mixed feelings...
poisons it, kind of.
Now that I've had a chance to digest it, the mixed feelings really just come from the ending. The movie itself is fantastic.
One of my feelings, like why this happened, was that you're right. Up until that point, the movie's fantastic, but there's almost no real violence. And I feel like Tarantino made this movie, and he's like, I'm at the end of my script. This is what I'm known for. I better put something shocking in at the end.
I think he did it on purpose.
We should spoil the... I guess we'll talk about the ending real quick because
we'll wait till the second half of the show because I can talk about the ending for a full hour.
Okay.
So let's rewind it back again. So the best parts of the movie, my favorite parts of the movie, Rick is filming the pilot for Lancer.
Yep.
He's playing the villain Caleb.
Yep.
The director, puts the mustache and the long hair and the fringe jacket, makes him look like a hippie. Rick hates hippies.
And the dynamic with the little girl actor as well.
Yeah,
I didn't look up her name, but she's pretty good.
Julia Butters is the actor. Yeah, she's really good. Anyway, so yeah, he gets the set and he's like, reading his book on the Old West facade, set. And there's the little girl who plays, in the show as well. She's sitting there reading her book, and they're sitting next to each other. This is peak Tarantino. This is like best Tarantino.
Yeah.
Just characters sitting there talking about nothing, basically, But it all it ties into Rick's whole character and development and feelings. And he's talking about the book he's reading and about how it's a washed up old cowboy who's not as good as he used to be.
Which is kind of on the nose.
Obviously referencing Rick's career, and the little girl's trying to, comfort him.
And he starts crying,
he starts crying. Oh, no, and then he does the big saloon scene with Jim Stacey, played by Timothy Olyphant, who, who's the hero of the show, who's the big star, who's overshadowing Rick's, name on the banner, and they do the big saloon scene, and there's a gunfight, and there's this is like at this point I was kind of like, Tarantino should have just done another Western because that's clearly what he loves. It's clearly what he's good at. But I was kind of like...
And he couldn't take his feet out of the World War II pool for a minute either. He has just like one little scene, like a flashback.
Of McCluskey, yeah.
Did
anybody order fried sauerkraut? Burn, you Nazi bastard!
It's like a couple of little greatest hit moments.
That's why the movie should have been exclusively about Rick's career. Making movies in 60s Hollywood. That's all. Because that's all the best parts.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's doing the Western. They're in the saloon doing the, the back and forth. Caleb and Johnny Madrid is the main character. Yeah. They're doing their back and forth. It's all great, Tarantino dialogue. And then Rick forgets his lines. And he's just like freaking out. And then he's like, all right. And I love how Leo is like overacting.
Yeah.
Like he's deliberately...
You mean in the trailer?
No, on the set during his lines.
Before that bit where they're on set in the saloon. And Leo playing Caleb.
Yeah.
He screws up his lines. He gets up. And he's like, damn it. And the director's like, keep going. And he's like, all right. And he sits back down. And then he like does the take again, but he's like overacting. Like he's now inside his own head, like an actor who like has forgotten his lines.
Hamming it up a bit.
He's now hamming it up, and like it's so good. Anyway,
I love the part before he leaves and he comes back, or is this after the set? And then he goes to his trailer. And
then he goes to his because he screwed up his line, which is one of my probably my favorite part of the movie.
The scene where he's in the trailer, I found out was improvised.
Yeah. So Rick goes back to his trailer and he's
He
just
blames
like
it on his drinking.
yelling
Yeah.
and screaming, throwing things around.
Leo
He's like,
improvised that.
yeah, he's just
That's
like
awesome.
he's just like, you know, you screwed up, you know, you're a terrible actor, you drink too much, you know, you're an idiot. I like how he's like pointing himself in the mirror. He's like, you're gonna quit drinking. He's like, if you don't do your lines, you know, I'm gonna blow your brains out.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like this is the best part of the movie. This is where I was like 100%.
And they go back and they do the next scene, I think, or is this a bit earlier?
No, this is after. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's and I also like how the meeting with the little girl, he's like yelling at himself in the mirror and he's like, you're going to prove to Jim Stacey, you're going to prove to the girl like you're a good actor. Like I like how that
Yeah.
meeting affected him
Yeah.
so much. You know?
And then they do the next scene.
Yeah, and they do the next scene where he's like got the little girl hostage.
And he throws her to the ground.
Yeah, and he's just like, you know,
And she's like, no, it's fine. I got pads on my arms.
yeah, he's like, oh,
And
sometimes
yeah.
I just throw myself on the ground for fun.
And she's like, that's such a little girl moment.
And he's like, he does a really good performance.
And she's like, that's the best acting I've
Yeah.
ever seen. He starts crying.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so good.
He's like, validation.
yeah, that's the best scene of the entire movie.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what the movie is about.
Yeah.
And that's what the ending unravels. And
Yeah.
that's where the movie kind of like doesn't like that's the movie's about Rick's
Korea.
career descent and
And
kind
like the
of trying to-
relationship between him
Yeah.
and Cliff Booth as well.
Exactly. But even Cliff gets pushed to the side, and it's almost like the way I was describing it to my friend after seeing it the second time was like Rick's storyline is like the main storyline, his career.
A storyline.
Yeah. Then you've got like a tangential kind of Cliff adventure where he's like, you know, picking up the hippie girl, fixing the antenna, driving around. But that's kind of closer to the main storyline because of his friendship with Rick. Then you've got another storyline where it's just like Sharon's adventures in Hollywood. Like she goes to the shops, she goes to the movies, and all these scenes are great, and I love them all. But yeah, they don't really come together or interweave properly enough. And also we should say, like, you know, that those scenes where Rick is doing the pilot and playing Caleb, like, they're the best scenes. But intercut between them is like Sharon, you know, she goes to the wrecking crew, the movie she was in, and she tells the people at the ticket booth, like, you know, I'm in this movie. You
So
know.
how proud she is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, she goes to see the movie, and like you said before, like, it's actually the real Sharon Tate. They don't try to digitally insert Margot Robbie into the shots or anything. Like, she's watching actual... But, you know, it's such a great scene. And I still love it. I still think it's great. It's just the ending, like, it doesn't tie in at all.
No.
And so it ends up feeling like, what's the point kind of thing.
Yeah, made redundant.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't pay off. It doesn't like... It doesn't move towards anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't progress anything.
Yeah, like some people are arguing like it's just like it's a love letter to Hollywood. It's just like it's a cathartic kind of thing. Like, you know, it's a celebration of Sharon Tate's life, which
Well, then I
that's
feel like-
that's fair enough.
Yeah, but he should have made a movie about Sharon Tate.
Exactly. Or he should have tied her into the story
yeah.
more. When Cliff's on the roof fixing the antenna, he can oversee Sharon's house. And she's in her bedroom, like, dancing to music and, you know, I think she's folding clothes or whatever. And by most movie cliche standards, she would see him through the window or he would see her, and then they would meet up or whatever. But that never happens. And on one hand, you could say, well, Tarantino's subverting our expectations.
And with that scene there, I love the little ninja jumps that Brad Pitt
Oh,
does. to
so
get to
because
the
he's a
roof.
stunt man, he can just parkour,
Yeah.
jump up onto the roof. So
That's
good.
just like, it's like a split second little mini
yeah,
scene.
he's like-
It's like,
and I like how it's just like,
yeah.
like it's so Tarantino.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you could say he's subverting expectations by not falling to that trap. But that's the perfect opportunity
To bring them in.
for
Yeah.
Sharon to say, "Hi, neighbor, come, you know, we'll drink," and for the storylines to merge.
And it seemed they could have merged even earlier than that, though.
Yeah.
Because in the early part of the movie, Rick's like, "Oh, that's Roman Polanski."
That's-
like he should have
Okay,
introduced
yeah.
himself to Roman
So
early on in the movie, being like,
this is-
"I am your biggest fan."
This is where I think the movie fails the most. Is the movie is about and should have been entirely about Rick's career journey.
Yeah.
You know, being a washed up TV
Yeah.
actor, you know, kind of reinvigorating his career. Yeah, so he lives next door to Roman Polanski. He, like, you know, he says to Cliff, like, I've lived next door to Roman Polanski for like a month, and he's like, I could be one door knock away from restarting my career, starring in a Roman Polanski film. That never really occurred.
It should have been about that.
Yeah,
It'd be
the movie
hilarious
should have been about that.
if the B plot of the film
Yeah.
was Rick Dalton stalking Polanski.
Yeah, and
like,
so-
you have him like on doing his TV pilots.
Yeah.
And then when he's not filming, he's just following
Yeah.
Polanski around, trying to introduce himself at the right
Yeah.
moment.
Like the movie should have been about Rick's career kind of nosediving, and then by a
Chance of fate.
running into Polanski or running into Sharon and being like, "Oh, come over," and and then him starring in Polanski. And the movie should have ended with him being the big star in Polanski's new movie.
What year did Chinatown come out in?
71.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if they put
Oh.
Leonardo DiCaprio in like a Chinatown scene?
That would be
And
great.
it's like that was what launched
That's
his career.
That's what the movie should have ended on.
yeah, it's like, would
Chinatown.
you like he reading
Yeah.
the script for
See,
Chinatown
Yeah. See, so here's the thing with the end.
instead of Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, we won't talk about the ending right now because we're going to go off air soon. But like, that's the thing. Like, the movie should have been about like Rick's career, and then that meeting, whether it occurs before or after the attack.
Yeah.
That's where the histories should have divided. That's where our timeline and the Tarantino verse timeline should have diverged.
That would have been such a great ending. Here, Rick, read this new script. It's called Chinatown.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Jack Nicholson's career. His career went nowhere.
But the movie's not about Jack. It's about
exactly,
Rick. That's about all the time we have for the live portion of the show.
Yes, thank you for listening. We'll be back in a sec with the rest of the show. All right, we're back. So what were we talking about? We're talking about...
we were talking about Roman Polanski and Rick Dalton.
Yeah. So the whole movie is about like Rick's failing career and him trying to like restart his career. He even says to Cliff, I live next door to Polanski. I'm just, close, so close to, restarting my career. So the attack on Sharon should have come maybe halfway through the movie instead of at the end. And then that should have been the inciting incident that leads Rick and Cliff and Sharon and Roman to becoming friends, and Roman eventually casting Rick in his new film.
And if the attack happened earlier in the movie, that might also make the audience wonder, like, is Cliff a good guy? Did he kill his wife? Because you've already seen he can...
Yeah, well, I feel like they should have tied that in better where, like, because Cliff, there's that bit where they show him potentially killing his wife. There's a bit where he's at the Manson family ranch and he's like talking about how he spent 2 months on a Texas chain gang for breaking a cop's jaw or whatever. And the girl's like, oh, Charlie's really going to love you, So like he has the potential to join the family or whatever, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he has the potential of a bad guy. But Tarantino never seems to actually even flirt with that idea. He never actually seems to be interested in Cliff falling to the dark side, quote unquote. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the movie would have been much better if it tied in. Like, I was saying the other day to my friends, I'm like, what if... Because there's Pussycat, the Manson family hitchhiker.
Yeah.
Cliff picks her up and drops her at the Spawn movie ranch where the Manson family live. And then I was like, well, but then he leaves and that ranch bit never actually meant any. It never didn't really add anything to the film. I was like, what if he actually starts a relationship with Pussycat and then she's the one who comes to the Sharon house with the attackers, and then like he recognizes her and talks her out of it or whatever. Like, there should have been something that ties all these threads together, because
Definitely.
the actual like the Cliff subplot with him going to the ranch is just Tarantino being like, and it's a good scene, it's well done, the tension's great, but it's just Tarantino being like, I don't like hippies. And so Cliff like beats the shit out of this hippie guy.
He killed. They all died, don't they?
No.
Who?
Oh, I'm spoiling the ending. Sorry.
No, we've already announced spoilers.
But there's
don't
like-
worry about
there's like
that,
20
but-
there's like-
but
oh, no,
be-
no,
be
I
more-
forgot.
be more specific.
I forgot the encounter at the Spawn Ranch. I thought you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he's
yeah.
beating the shit out of Clem, I think it is, and like,
Yeah.
and it's this slow mo, like guy hitting the ground, and then he hits him again, and he's like slow mo hitting, and I'm like, this is just Tarantino jerking off.
Just
Like
dirty fucking hippies.
dirty fucking hippies. I'm like, this is just like unnecessary, and like the way I described it was like, this almost feels like Tarantino's getting to his old man get off my lawn stage. Like, and I know Tarantino's been talking a lot of shit for a long time about how he's only going to do 10 movies and he's going to retire and then he's going to write novels. And I'm kind of like, you know, maybe you should stop talking shit. You know, we'll see what happens. But also, at this point, I'm kind of like, maybe he's got a point. Maybe he's just an angry old man at this point.
We should note that he's 9 movies in.
Yeah.
He claims he wants to only do 10.
Yeah.
But he's lucky enough to be one of the only directors in the industry who can just announce to the world, I have a screenplay.
Yeah.
Who wants to auction millions of dollars out? Who wants to bid for the privilege to help me make my movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not many directors in the world have that kind of...
We talked about this the other night. I'm like, Tarantino has been lucky enough to make pretty much all the movies he's wanted to make. I mean, obviously there were movies he didn't get to make, but you know, like when he makes a movie,
it's done his way.
Yeah, usually he gets to make it his way. Not a lot of filmmakers can say the same. You know, so when he starts talking about he's going to retire, and
people talk a lot of smack. I don't know. Can he back it up? We'll see.
He'll get bored.
But it's just like at this, like, and this is a small percentage of a great movie.
Yeah.
But it's a percentage that's very, very visible, especially in someone who's, you know, followed his career. It's like, maybe he's got a point. Maybe he's just getting to his angry old man phase and that he should wrap it up at 10, because otherwise he's just going to end up, you know, sort of imploding on himself with his own self-references.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were talking about the attack on Sharon and like, that's like, so here's another thing about the movie. If you don't know anything about Sharon Tate, if you don't know anything about the Manson family, if you don't know anything about the attack, you have no idea what the fuck's going on at the end of this movie.
Yeah, there's no hand-holding.
Like, so, and let's go back even further. Charles Manson has one scene in this movie.
Had the smallest scene.
Like, he fucking, the Aussie guy who plays him, gets like, he walks up to the house and then walks away. That's it. Like, and then that never comes back into play. That should have came back into play.
And he's a good actor as Charles Manson too.
Yeah.
Having watched his scene in season 2 of
Mindhunter.
Mindhunter,
Yeah.
he's very good in that scene.
I was joking to my friend. I'm like, what if in Mindhunter he just has the same amount of stuff to do?
No, but like, his scene is one of the best scenes in the season.
Yeah, but it's just like,
so they could have used him like capitulating to his followers, being charismatic,
if you don't
playing his guitar.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't know who Charles Manson is, you'd be like, what the fuck was that scene where that weird guy walks up to the house and then walks away?
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like
you have to have background knowledge of the Manson family, you know, the Sharon Tate murders, like, to know what the hell's going on at the end of this movie.
I think that's a part of Tarantino being unapologetic. You know what I mean?
But we go to the ranch. We could have used more Charlie there.
Exactly. Charlie, like, there's even a cut. There's a cut shot that's in the trailer that's not in the movie where Cliff's on the roof, and that's when Charlie goes to Sharon's house, and then he leaves. But in the trailer, he actually like looks up at Cliff on the roof and waves to him, and I'm like, that should have been in the movie. And then on top of that, when Cliff gets to the ranch, maybe Charlie should have been there as well.
Yeah.
Or
could have been some interesting dialogue between Cliff and Charlie.
Again, Cliff's B story, if Rick's story is A and Cliff is B, Cliff's B story should have been more about him getting involved with Pussycat and by association getting involved with the Manson family.
Yeah.
And by association getting involved with Charles Manson. Whether he falls for Charles's shit and becomes a bad guy, or whether he
pisses them off,
goes
and
full
that's why they
Tarantino.
come.
Yeah. That would have made much more sense. It would have tied into everything, and it would have tied back in. So the attack happens earlier in the film, and that's what kind of
brings Dalton and Polanski and the Hollywood
together.
kind of thing all in a nice little bow.
And it brings it back into the theme and what the movie is about is Rick's career, you know, and you know, and the golden age of Hollywood coming to an end. But what happens is there's over 2 hours of all this stuff that's gold. Yeah. All this Rick, you know, doing the TV show and all this stuff that's great. Then there's this 6 months time jump where Rick goes to Italy to film spaghetti westerns and stuff.
And he comes back with his beautiful Italian bride and all this
and
furniture.
he kind of he quote unquote breaks up with Cliff. He's like, I can't really afford you, and I'm anymore. I'm married now, whatever. But and then when they go back to the house to get hammered, that's when the attack happens.
Yeah.
But where the timelines diverge from what really happens to the
Should be much
Tarantino
earlier.
verse, is because when the Manson family members are going to Sharon's house to murder everyone there, like in real life, Rick hears their car and he's pissed, he's drunk off his face, and he's got the picture of margaritas, which is hilarious, and he's like out in the middle of the street with his robes, with his bathrobe, yelling at them in the street. Get this mechanical asshole out of my street.
That's my favorite line of the whole film.
It's so good. He's like drinking out of the blender thing.
I just love that. It's so earnest.
It's so great. Yeah.
It's like these damn hippies.
Yeah.
Like,
and then they decide to, instead of attacking Sharon, they're like, let's make a symbol of of a fading star who used to star in violent westerns. Like, let's make an example of it. So let's attack him. And so they go to his house instead and try to attack him. And then Cliff, who's like smoked a acid-laced cigarette, he's high as fuck. He comes home, and the Manson family members are there with knives, gonna attack Rick and whatever. And then he just brutally murders all of the hippies
with his dog.
Yeah, and he attacks them.
He has that click come out like.
Yeah, and then the dog grabs Tex, one of the Manson family members, and is ripping into him. And
Tex is also in season 2 of Mindhunter.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Just a little Easter egg.
yeah.
There.
Yeah, so it's the dog's ripping at him, and it's screaming, and the other girl she goes to attack him, and he throws the dog can of dog food at her, and it smashes her in the face, and she's bleeding and screaming and yelling and rolling around on the floor, and then he grabs the other girl and bashes her head into the phone, and then bashes
Extreme
her head.
violence.
Yeah, and if you don't know who the Manson family are, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, yeah.
Why are they brutally the hippies were obviously bad guys, but why are they brutally murdering these people over and over again? If you know about the Manson family murders, you know it's Tarantino's tongue-in-cheek, cathartic, they got what's coming to them. We got our cinematic revenge on these people who brutally murdered
just like they did on the
pregnant
Nazis
Sharon
in
Tate.
Inglourious Basterds.
Exactly.
It's his
but this
revisionary sort of history.
But this comes right at the end of the movie and completely derails Rick's storyline.
yeah.
And Cliff's B storyline really goes nowhere. And Cliff, having been shown to possibly have murdered his wife, and having him beating a woman to death, it adds another layer of.
Yeah, you say it like that. That
Do you
makes
know
me
what I
laugh.
mean?
It's like
I
how
don't
violent
thi-
you make it. It is
I
that
don't-
violent. It's
no,
not-
it is that violent.
when you
we're not
separate it from the
overstating.
when you
Yeah.
separate
We're not
it from the
overstating
context-
anything.
When you separate it from the context of the film,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. It sounds so brutal.
Again, everything in this movie, the scene is fantastic. It's hilarious. It's so well done and so over the top and ridiculously
And then-
gory that it
and-
becomes funny and people are laughing and loving it.
And there's a sickening head stomp at the
Yeah.
end, which we
so
see
bad.
from up above, so we don't
Yeah,
see it.
it's pfft. But it's do you know what I mean? It doesn't tie into the
No.
actual Rick storyline.
yeah,
Cliff's
it's just gratuitous.
Cliff's storyline doesn't really go anywhere, and his kind of ambiguous moral, center, but Tarantino doesn't seem to be aware or exploring that. He's just here's a funny little aside that this character might have killed his wife, and also I hate hippies and he's going to murder the hippies.
Speaking of the hippies, just a quick shout out to the scene where I think Pussycat has her feet on the window screen.
Oh yeah, on the windshield of Cliff's car.
That triggered me a little bit. It is gross.
So we should mention that Tarantino's foot. This is peak Tarantino foot fetish.
Oh, yeah,
This is
yeah.
more. So this is when I say this is Tarantino. This is more Tarantino than
yeah.
good for the movie.
I saw a quote on the internet that said, "If you don't believe Tarantino has a foot fetish before you see this film,
Yeah.
you will come out a believer."
If Tarantino's movies had never had feet in them until this movie, this is the movie where you'd be like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
See, but none of that bothers me.
No.
But I'm
It's
just like,
Tarantino, yeah.
on top of all the other stuff we've been talking about, this is Tarantino going too much Tarantino.
Yeah, no. I'm
Whether
saying,
he's self-aware or
Yeah.
not is not the point.
No,
It's almost to the
Yeah.
point where he's parodying himself
Yeah.
to the detriment of the actual interesting story of the movie.
I'd just like to point out though that dirty feet on a glass right up on the big screen. It's not a good time. Unless he's Tarantino.
Also, Sharon's feet on the cinema chair. Don't mind it. Love Margot Robbie, but not cool to have your foot on the chair in the cinema. As
people who respect a good cinema.
As someone who
the only thing
loves
that's
going to
worse
the cinema.
is when they're on the airplane. You got your feet popping out.
Oh yeah.
Someone's foot popping out.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen in the movie. Thank God.
No, thank God. Anyway, so the hippies get beaten to death.
Yeah.
And then Rick's listening to music or something.
Yeah, Rick's in his pool listening to headphones, so he can't hear what's going on, all the screaming and yelling and carrying on. And then like the one hippie girl, Sadie, I think they call her,
with the knife,
who I think's based on Susan Atkins, which is like one of the Manson family members. She's like bleeding, all her face is all messed up, and she runs through the glass
into the pool.
And this is the thing, like it reminded me of like a Sam Raimi comedy horror or something. Like it like completely changes gears.
Yeah.
Like the movie is one thing, and then it just ends with this crazy zany like horror comedy.
Evil
kind of
Dead
thing.
2.
Yeah, like silly, over the top. She runs through the glass door out into the pool.
I feel like the scene previously where we see the Nazi film Rick did.
Yeah.
Was that just an
With the
excuse
flamethrower.
for the
Probably.
end of the film for Rick to burn someone alive with a flamethrower?
So he just magically has the flamethrower.
same flamethrower from the movie,
still
works.
in his shed, and it still works. And he like tortures the girl in the pool, and it's like she's just screaming, and there's like fire everywhere. And then it's like, that's the end. Like that's almost the end of the movie, Like it never really. And then like, Cliff gets stabbed and, gets taken away in the ambulance, and Rick is like, oh, you're a good friend. And he's like, I try. And I think that's Tarantino going like, oh, the movie is actually about their friendship. But the movie hasn't really been about that for quite some time.
Yeah.
Especially at the end of the movie where it's just become like a horror comedy.
What interests me about, like, we point out all of these seemingly obvious to us flaws in the story.
Yeah.
Apparently it took him 5 years. He originally wrote this story as a novel and then translated it to screenplay.
So this is actually ties into a point I wanted to talk about, is how Tarantino suffers from the opposite of writer's block. He just keeps writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and writing until like someone just stops him. Like he for Inglourious Basterds, which he spent like 20 years writing, like or 10 years, I should say. I think he started in the late 90s and came out in 2009. So, like, he just kept, like, he had, like, his first draft was, like, 400 pages, which, for those who don't know...
It's roughly a minute a page, right?
Roughly equates to 400 minutes. And he said he hadn't finished the movie at that point. That wasn't a finished draft. That was, like, a midpoint of the movie. So he could have, just kept writing and writing. And... in Inglourious Basterds' case, it worked out well where he just kind of whittled it down to the best pieces. And that movie is possibly my favorite Tarantino.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was saying with his last couple of movies, with Django and Hateful Eight and with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his kind of self-parody, self-awareness, or whether he's self-aware or not is not the point. On top of that, like, he just seems to write a lot of fluff now.
Yeah.
And leave it in the movie. Whereas before, he would whittle it down to its essential, maybe it's the fact that he's not, he's Sally Menke, his editor, passed away after Inglourious Basterds. So maybe that's just it. Maybe it's that simple.
He needs a new editor.
He needs another editor. But
you need a strong editor to be like, cut this, cut this, cut this, cut this.
Exactly. But I think it's also in the writing you can see where he's just writing and writing and writing. And it's all great stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's all fucking fantastic, peak Tarantino craziness. But at the end of the day...
the story suffers for it.
Exactly. You get to a point where it's just like, why is this here? This is great, but this really... And the ending of Once Upon a Time is really what... completely derails the whole movie.
Do you remember? So he claims he wants to finish and write novels.
Yeah.
Right. Do you remember I told you I read that book by Nick Cave, And the Ass Saw the Angel? And I was like, I said Nick Cave's a great storyteller, not a great author.
Yeah.
I feel like if without a good editor, that's what Tarantino's going to be. Great
Sort of,
stories,
yeah.
but I feel like someone who
He just keeps waffling
yeah,
on.
like Nick Cave's good at he's pretty good at doing screen stuff.
Yeah, screenwriting, songwriting.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a transition.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite.
But see, like on one hand, it's like that's the freedom a novel gives you. It gives you can ramble on, and they're like you can't really do that in a song or a movie.
No, still doesn't mean it's going to be good.
But exactly. So Tarantino, it'll be great for him to write a novel that's like a Stephen King style,
on the other hand,
crazy epic.
Like it does go both ways. Like there's like Alan Moore, for example, who can write really good long form stuff. I don't know if he'd be able to contain all of his thoughts and complications into a 2-hour film. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd want to see what a Tarantino novel looks like, because to me, most of the appeal to Tarantino is very visual.
Yeah. I feel like if he does write a novel, it'll be a very visual,
very character, or it could be very dialogue-y, very character focused.
Yeah, like a lot of dialogue, a lot of character, but also like the way he describes stuff in his scripts, which aren't usually about descriptive stuff. Like it'll be interesting how that translates to a novel.
But hopefully he's full of shit and he won't be clear.
But like the ending of the movie almost feels like a piss take. Like he's like here's a semi-serious, like it's a funny movie, or like all Tarantino movies.
But it's not exactly.
But here's a semi-serious look at the end of the golden age of Hollywood, a memory piece, a nostalgia piece about a love letter to Hollywood and the filmmaking industry. Here's Rick and his career, and here's all the TV shows I used to love, and all the music that was at the time that I love. And then like it gets to the end, and he's like, and then we kill hippies. And
then it's basically, do you remember that twist from Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
Here's a similar thing, because you all like that so much.
But it's like, he did that in Django as well, where it's like, and then the slave comes back and gets revenge.
And then we kill all the white racists.
Yeah. It's like, that's fine, as long as it ties back into the story, which in this case, it doesn't really. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a piss take. It's just him going like, eh. And I think, like I said, after that 6 months later jump, the movie has nothing to say. Tarantino said everything he can about Rick and his career, and then after that, 6 months later, then Kurt Russell just magically narrates everything you need to know about the Italy trip, and then narrates the night Sharon is supposedly supposed to get murdered. And then he's like, and then we flip the script and we actually kill the hippies. The movie goes nowhere after that point. Like the fact that there's narration and he breaks the show don't tell rule.
I mean, the only excuse I could see for that is it's once upon a time, so you can get away.
That's the thing is at the end of the movie when they kill the Manson family members and Sharon's okay and Rick gets invited over to Sharon's house and they hug and like the camera pans up and it says once upon a time ... in Hollywood. Yeah. And it's like, yes, this is a fairy tale. This is Tarantino's magical version.
Fake Hollywood, yeah.
But it's like you can have that, but also it has to tie back into what was the actual story all along.
Yeah.
Was Rick's career and end of Golden Age Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like it felt like a piss take. Like he's just like, here's narration because I have to quickly wrap up because I don't really know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then we kill hippies, the end.
Yeah.
Haha, once upon a time, it's a fairy tale. It doesn't make sense. It's, and people say, oh, it's cathartic. We celebrate Sharon Tate and, we get to see her alive after the attack is unsuccessful. And I'm like, yes, one, that requires knowledge of the events.
Yeah.
But two, it doesn't tie. It could easily tie into the Rick storyline, but it doesn't. And that's why
maybe he didn't want to involve Roman too much because Roman is a controversial figure.
But then, like,
I mean, he wasn't a controversial figure at the time.
If you don't want to involve Roman in helping Rick revitalize his career, you can't really do the Sharon Tate storyline either. It's
exactly.
Like, you can't have
he was
one without
influential
the
at
other.
the time.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't pretend
No, I suppose
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
like
I
you,
think,
you either don't have them in the film at all,
or you have to include
or
them.
you just say, look, yes, Roman Polanski is a bad person.
But they don't bring that up at all in the film because
Not-
it does predate.
Not directly.
No,
yeah,
yeah, they
not really.
predate they predate those events.
Yeah, but this is one of my things is they should have maybe cut out the Italy storyline, even though all that that stuff's great with the spaghetti westerns and that, like that's all hilarious. But like maybe they should have cut that out and been like Rick's last chance at revitalizing his career is meeting Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
And so the movie should have been about him trying to bump into Roman Polanski.
Yeah, like trying to
And
orchestrate it.
Yeah, and the attack, and perhaps Rick and Cliff save Sharon from the attack. That's what gets Rickon in with Polanski, and that's how he revitalizes his career. And that could have still come at the end of the movie. It probably would have been better if it came in the middle.
Yeah.
But that could have still come at the end, and it's like we were saying, and then Rick and that ties into Rick's career. But Cliff's kind of B storyline, yes, they're friends, and yes, they have great. Leo and Brad Pitt,
Great
chemistry. Like
apparently they had a really good time on set together, and they want to keep making movies.
The bit where they're just like watching FBI and commenting on it, like fucking great. Like so I just want to watch a movie just all about that, just them hanging out. But that because the end of the movie is so crazy, over the top, outrageous. Even Cliff's storyline never really ties back into Rick's.
Yeah,
like Cliff.
That's why I said it's like there's like two different ideas for two different movies.
Yeah, it's like Rick quote unquote breaks up with Cliff, and then at the end he saves him, and he's like, "You're a good friend." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, no, this is just like Tarantino pretending like he's wrapping up their storyline.
Yeah.
He's not actually wrapping up the storyline. The movie should have been about like, Rick's storyline, then Cliff like getting involved with the Manson family, and then tangentially, accidentally leading them to Sharon's house or something dumb like that, because it's not obviously based on the real events, so it doesn't matter if there's a bit of, Charles Manson. This is also another really fucked up thing. I can't remember if I mentioned it to you guys when we saw the movie. Does this mean Charles Manson got away with it and continued to operate?
Yeah, he never.
Which is almost more scary.
Yeah, I assume that he would have continued carrying on.
Yeah, like it's a yes.
We talked about that after. We're like, the implications in this new world.
Yeah. And that's the thing is Tarantino doesn't actually want to explore.
That could be the horror. That could be the 10th horror movie
that he wants to do. Yeah, but see, like Tarantino actually doesn't want to explore the implications of his alternate timeline.
And if they did, if the Sharon Tate sequence happened in the middle of the film, you could
would have had to
headlines.
Exactly, he would have had to have dealt with
the parallel,
But
universe.
But because it's at the end, he's just like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it would be cool, like fake news headlines or like on journal, whatever.
That retroactively, I think, harms the movie, where it's like that raises some,
interesting questions,
troubling questions. Yeah, and the fact that it doesn't tie into.
Hey, you don't know. Maybe Charles Manson actually became a famous recording artist and didn't kill anyone.
Yeah. See, Tarantino saves the day again. Yeah, like it just, because Tarantino has said that this movie, is probably his most personal, which I know he's talking about, him growing up in LA, being young, listening to the music, watching those movies, driving down the streets of Hollywood. Like that's where the best part, that's where the best parts of the movie come from. But it's when he goes full Tarantino.
Yeah.
It's almost, it's like I said, it's almost like he's parodying himself. He's like, here's what you expect from the ending of a Tarantino. I would have actually loved this film a lot more if he, quote unquote, subverted our expectations and actually ended the film much more somberly. Is that what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, somberly's fine.
Is that the right? Nathan, Google that. That doesn't sound like a real word.
Somber is fine.
Is it
SOMBRE?
Yeah, somber. Yeah, somber is a word. Is somberly a word? Anyway, if he actually ended the film like maybe Sharon does die, that would actually make the scenes of Sharon living her life and
somberly's fine.
Yeah, okay. I'm not that dumb. That would actually make the scenes of Sharon living her life and being a good life-loving person more poignant.
Yeah.
And it would also mean that maybe you don't have to make her a character, but her scenes when she does pass away
are all that more powerful.
Yeah, it's like they're more affecting, especially if you see them, if you know what's coming and you see the movie twice. And that would have made, and I think that would have made the movie a lot better as well. Where maybe that this might have been selfish of Rick and selfish of Tarantino to write it this way, and maybe would be a bit offensive to Sharon's legacy. But maybe Sharon dying is what the final nail in his career's coffin. Like Polanski moves away and is just like, distraught and he doesn't want anything to do with that area, and Rick is part of that area.
Yeah.
That could have been a really like poignant ending. If you're going to do that though, then I think Rick and Polanski and Sharon should have been friends before the event.
Yeah.
And then the event kind of separates them, and Rick's career could have been restarted by Polanski, but the attack,
traumatized Polanski, and
that would have been, I think, because people have been saying this is Tarantino's most mature film.
No.
If they did that, what I just said, that would have been. But what he ends up doing, like I said, it's a piss take. It's like a ha-ha, this is what you expect from an ending of a Tarantino movie.
Which it would have been a better movie without.
Exactly. And it still could have been very Tarantino.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just like he's doing something a little bit different. Like he's tying it back into what the movie's actually about. So yeah, it's like sometimes it's too Tarantino for its own good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
No, yeah.
So I mean, now that we've talked about all that, let's rewind it back a bit. Just talk about some of the cool little things in the movie.
I like the scene. I like the tiny little scene. It only goes for a few seconds where we see Rick training to use the flamethrower.
Oh yeah, it's like, damn, that's too hot. Like, is there any way to fix that? And it's like, Rick, it's a flamethrower.
It's moments like those little moments.
See, those are the
make
great
the movie.
Yeah, those are the great Tarantino moments.
Yeah.
That kind of feed the character.
Yeah.
Whereas the aside of Cliff killed his wife, that's just raising questions that are never really answered and just kind of troubling.
It's that Tarantino flavor that we like so much.
Yeah. You can still have that flavor, but it has to kind of be a bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
I like all the bounty law stuff. Fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh, man.
Recreating the old, late 50s, early 60s
Even
TV
his spot
show
in
Western.
FBI, I was just like, I want to watch that TV show. I want to watch...
That scene he's in, actually Burt Reynolds played that character. So it's like they inserted him and said... Oh, and the scene where... Jim Stacy's talking to Rick about how I heard you almost got the McQueen role in The Great Escape.
Yeah.
And then it's like that I don't know what it's called, but that music where it's like dun, it's like something went off in Rick's brain. He's just he just broke him. And then he it's like a flash where it's like, what if Rick starting
that was so good.
They digitally insert him into Great Escape. So good. See, that's all stuff that's a great Tarantino flourish, but it feeds into Rick's character,
Yeah. And that's what he's
good.
best at.
Yeah. Also, I love the straight up alcoholism in this movie.
Yeah, and the chain smoking.
I know it's period accurate.
We actually talked about that too. This was at an era when
we
wasn't
were talking
necessarily unhelpful to you in society to drink a lot.
Yeah, we were talking about the Wrecking Crew and Dean Martin being a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
And how this was back when it was okay to be a functioning
everyone wore suits.
Yeah.
You didn't drink
Hey,
beers.
if you're drunk in a suit, it's fine.
Yeah.
You drank martinis.
It was more classy because you could get away with drinking during the day, and you wore a suit all the time.
You drank classy drinks.
Yeah, exactly. Although one of my favorite bits of the movie when they're watching FBI, and Cliffs is talking about how he's got the acid dip cigarette. He's like, you can smoke some, but just leave some for me. And Rick's like, nah, my booze don't need no buddy.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm good with just being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I don't need to try any hippie drugs.
Good.
So good.
So good.
I think that's my high point. The high point of the movie for me is just that great atmosphere in the movie.
Yeah. The filmmaking bits.
Just the
moving
filmmaking.
bits. Yeah, that's what Tarantino's obviously passionate about. That's what the movie should have been.
The movie looks just brilliant.
Oh man, so good.
And I'll buy this movie when it comes out on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Just so I can watch the filmmaking.
I also hope they have extended bounty law scenes.
Well,
Here's
one of
if they knock up a couple of mini episodes.
Oh,
stick
man.
them on the Blu-ray.
Well, no.
extras.
I would love that.
like half
so,
an hour
so
episodes
much.
of Bounty Law.
Oh,
the
man.
story is that Quentin Tarantino enjoyed making the bounty law scenes so much, like the fictional TV
Yeah.
show, it's quite quick bits that we see. He wants to make like a 10-episode series of bounty law if he could get Leonardo involved.
Leo would be involved, right?
One, I would be
With
so
Brad Pitt
down
as
for
the
that.
stunt double.
Yeah,
Oh,
could
like
you
and
imagine?
they do like obvious
obviously,
shots.
yeah.
where it's- Oh man, like
Because Tarantino said, he wants like
Yeah.
10, like just 30-minute episodes.
I would love that so much. But Tarantino, every time a movie of his comes out, he always says like, "I've got so much footage, I could make a prequel. I've got so many
Yeah.
ideas, I could make a sequel.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I could do a TV show."
He talks
you
a
know?
big game.
Yeah. Like, I remember when Inglourious Basterds came out, and he's like, I've got so much backstory, I'm going to make a prequel. And then, of course, he never made a prequel,
No.
you know? He's like, I can make a Django TV show with Jamie Foxx. And it's like, no, he never did, you know?
Yeah, no.
So he always... But the
But
Bounty Law...
could be kind of cheap to make.
Bounty Law, I would be so down
I
for
think
that.
I think the only difference is that he's like he has an idea for like just 10 short episodes. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's kind of a saving grace.
Yeah.
But I don't-
15-minute web
it'll never
series,
happen.
you know?
Yeah.
It'll never happen,
Yeah, even
but-
if they're just like mini episodes,
Yeah.
like 10 minutes or whatever.
It'll never happen. But
No.
I just want to see Leonardo DiCaprio like in Bounty Law
Oh,
with
man.
with Brad Pitt as the obvious stunt double.
like falling off the horse. It's like clearly a shot of Brad Pitt with a wig. I do like that when he's about to fight Bruce Lee. He like takes off his jacket and he takes
And
off his wig
But his
to
wig
make
looks
him look
almost like the same as his hair.
Yeah, no, but because Rick has that little pompadour bit
yeah.
and Cliff doesn't. He's got like more swept back.
Yeah.
Like every time Cliff has to do a stunt for Rick, he has that little pompadour wig on there. So good.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
there's no Tarantino cameo in this movie that I could see.
He's in the cast on IMDb.
See-
so I wonder if it's possible he's in a deleted scene. I don't know.
Because like Tarantino always cameos in his movies, at least in some way, even if it's a very, side kind of thing.
He was also on one of the posters for the American release. Like there's
Was he?
Yeah, because there's we didn't have those posters,
Okay.
but there's also a poster that has Kevin Smith's daughter on it, and that's the poster where
Oh yeah,
he's
she's
inserted himself as
I
a little
like-
cameraman,
yeah,
camera guy.
Kevin Smith tweeted, "It's like
Yeah.
she made it on the poster."
Yeah, and he's on that poster.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't see it. Yeah, so maybe it's a deleted scene.
That's what I reckon.
When I was watching the movie the second time, you know how Rick has those little collectible cowboy cups?
Yep.
I thought Tarantino
Yeah,
might have been one of
yeah.
those, but I don't think it's him. I think it's just the drawing looks a bit funny.
The
But
Quentin Tarantino.
at the end,
Sorry, the Tarantino cameo.
is it the director at the end?
No, he is just a voice in the
Of Red-
post credit
Red
scene.
Apple?
Yeah,
yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is when they do the Red Apple commercial at the end, the director who yells "cut," I was like, that's got to be him, right? But I'm like, even for Tarantino, that's the smallest cameo
Yeah.
I think he's ever done.
Definitely.
Like even in Inglourious Basterds, he was like a dead body, and in Hateful Eight, he was the narrator. But in this one, like for him just to yell "cut," it's like the smallest of.
Yeah, definitely.
That Red Apple ad is so good. Though.
I know it's so on. It's so on time.
This-
And he
yeah,
cracks
like,
the shits with
these
it.
cigarettes taste like shit. And I was like, wow, I got a double gin.
Famous
Who
actors,
the
famous
hell
actors,
took? Yeah.
famous actors like shilling for their favorite brand of
Yeah.
cigarettes, or one in
So
this
good.
case, not his favorite, but
Yeah.
back in the days when doctors would like
Yeah,
have their own
recommend.
personal,
Yeah. Less throat burn.
the
So
average
good.
cigarette.
than your average non-filtered cigarette.
Yeah. There's also no Samuel Jackson cameo. Samuel Jackson usually has a little
Yeah.
thing here or there. But nothing. I mean, he might have been in the background something I didn't notice, but yeah.
Having said all that, I feel like I still need to watch it again.
Look,
Yeah.
after great movies always inspire discussion. Tarantino movies, even the not so good ones, always spark a lot of discussion and debate, and like his movies are just like special. Like it's like Scorsese movies,
Yeah, that's right.
Kubrick movies, Tarantino movies.
Yeah.
Like he's he's an auteur filmmaker.
That's why there's blockbuster. Literally, that's why his movies
Yeah.
are literally blockbusters.
Yeah, that's why there was a line around the block. Like,
I mean, it's not every day we get to see something special, and there's a magic about seeing this movie on 35mm film.
yeah, like how Tarantino.
Wants you to see it.
and like I said earlier in the show, like how that experience ties back into what the movie does so well,
Yeah,
which
the
is
magic of
the
Hollywood.
atmosphere, the magic of Hollywood, like what those old '60s TV shows and movies and music, like it's a great movie, and I'll love it, and I'll buy it, and I'll watch it, I'll rewatch it many times. But yeah, it's just at this point,
It is flawed.
Yeah, it's got those. I think the ending is what really lets it down.
Yeah.
If the ending was done a little bit better, or tied in things a little bit more.
I'm wondering how much, do you think there's a lot he left out in a potential director's cut?
Look, he doesn't really do director's cuts. I don't think he's.
I suppose because
ever-
he probably has final cut to
Yeah,
begin with.
I don't think he ever has done one. But I definitely want to see the deleted scenes, because there's going to be a heap of deleted scenes. Even watching the movie, you can see like there's a couple of bits where it's like I feel like there's something missing there.
Yeah.
And like I said in the trailer, there's a couple of shots that aren't there. And I know Tim Roth had a cameo that was completely cut out. So yeah, like it'll be great to see all the supplementary, stuff. But yeah, it's a great movie.
It just
great,
has a couple
great
problems,
Tarantino.
yeah.
It's
The ending
just-
lets it down.
It's got a few flaws, and mainly the ending, which kind of ripple back throughout your feelings towards the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel, there were a few people walking out of the cinema who were just like, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah,
Like
got to digest it.
Yeah, and like I heard one guy said there was I think a lady, she said something like that just kind of conked out, or I can't remember the word she used. She didn't say fizzled out, but she meant the same thing. It's just like it kind of ends nowhere.
Yes, like sputtered out.
Yeah. That's why I feel like after that 6 month jump and the narration starts and he's just trying to wrap things up so he can kill the hippies, it's kind of like it's like he's got nothing left here. But see, like we were talking about, he's always writing. I'm sure he had an hour more of story he wanted to tell after the attack.
I mean, the movie
or
is
after
almost 3 hours long.
Yeah.
One thing
But
I'm
it's
saying,
like-
doesn't feel 3 hours
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, it's pretty well paced. Up until that 6 months, that jump is like...
The editing's
See,
pretty
even
good.
I think I said before, like my favorite scene is where he's he's doing the scene as Caleb for the Lancer show, and then and the little girl's like, "That's the best acting I've
Yeah.
ever seen." He's like, "Rick fucking Dalton," and he starts crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
That's the best part of the movie. But those scenes are like intercut with like Sharon going
Yeah.
to see her own movie. I'm like, I love all that. Like, I love it. The way it's cut is it's well edited so that you're never really bored, and it never really, never really feels slow, and it never really feels like you're taking away from one scene or the other. But at the end, if it just converged a little better, if it just interwove those stories a bit better,
It could be a
could have been-
masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's
Honestly, it's like 10 feet away from all-time greatness.
Yeah, it's if he, like I said, he's someone who just keeps writing and writing and writing. But at the end, it felt like after that 6 months jump and Rick comes back from Italy, he just felt like he's like, yeah, I got more to say, but I just got to quickly wrap it up because I've got this funny idea about killing hippies, and that's it. Like it felt like that's where the story should have really come together, and instead it's just like, I wanted to make a Tarantino joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's really self-aware about it. Some of it he might be, but at that point I don't think he is. That's why, the film should... The ending is the most troublesome part. Almost everything else I can forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the ending is what like throws people off. That's where people like me have mixed feelings about
And I
it.
think, look, people are right to be thrown off by the ending.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, is that all we've got?
Yeah.
I think that's
I'm
it.
pretty sure we've emptied the tank on this one.
Yeah.
Top film has problems. All
Yeah.
movies do have problems, though.
Yeah.
No,
Apart
very
from-
good discussion tonight.
Yeah. I mean, Tarantino. I mean, it's Tarantino.
It's a
so
good
like
movie to have. Any movie he makes, we're going to have some good
will
discussions.
spark great discussion. He's his own universe. you
That's
could
it.
you could just
It's like-
talk about.
He's one of those filmmakers where we get to peer in for a brief window
Yeah.
into his mind, just for a little bit of time.
into his like dark, twisted. But yeah, like he's just Tarantino verse of movies, and his larger than life personality and whatever, and like his journey through Hollywood, like could make a whole show on just that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, good movie.
Go see it.
We'll see again.
Yeah, if you can see it on the big screen, go see it on the big screen.
Oh, definitely. Like such a good looking
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, I'd say I love the movie, but it's
You
also
loved most of the movie.
I love like it's just at the end of the day, it's just like parts of it just let it down. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up? We'll leave the other discussions for next week.
Yeah. Probably a good idea. We've almost done 2 hours.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at Tuesday Review AU. You can follow James on Instagram at Channel Drifter, where he gives his thoughts and reviews movies that we don't get to talk about on the show. You can find all of our previous episodes on your favorite podcasting app. If you like video games, check out Callum and James' Sunrise Arcade podcast. You can also catch Matty J's podcast, Car Talk, TORQUE, for all your automotive discussion. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Tuesday Review on iTunes. Adios, cousins.